Have you ever noticed how in so many legendary historical tales, the ultimate downfall of the heroes is pinned squarely on the female lead? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the centuries-old classic Punjabi oral tradition of Mirza and Sahiba. It's an absolutely beautiful, memorable, tragic love story. But you know what? We're going to look at it through a completely fresh lens today. A lens provided by modern author Punita Rice, who basically asks us to rethink everything we thought we knew about this tale.
So let's just jump right in and challenge an accepted cultural narrative that has survived for literally hundreds of years. Why does history always seem to blame the woman in a tragedy? Right? It's a pattern we see across folklore all over the globe, but honestly, it is deeply, undeniably pronounced in this specific tale. And to understand why author Punita Rice decided to challenge this historical bias, we really need to look at how completely unusual this blame is within its own cultural context.
Because as you can see, this brilliantly illustrates the anomaly. Of all the major classic Punjabi tragic love stories, Mirza Sahiba stands out because Sahiba alone is uniquely framed as a betrayer. In other massive cultural touchstones like Heer Ranja, Sasi Punu, or Soni Mahawal, the female lead is remembered as a tragic victim. She's mourned. But Sahiba? She stands entirely alone as the villainized figure. But why? What exactly did she do that earned her this notorious, highly negative legacy?
Okay, let's set the stage. Sahiba and Mirza were childhood playmates who grew to love one another deeply. But rather than allow them to marry, Sahiba's family forces her betrothal to another man, to Har Khan. This triggers a wildly daring escape. Literally, the night before her wedding, Mirza rides in on his legendary horse, Baki, for a midnight rescue, and Sahiba runs away with him. It's incredibly romantic, right? But it's right here, during their escape, where they pause to rest under a tree, that the whole story hinges.
Here is the crucial point. While Mirza slept, a frantic, worried Sahiba broke all of his arrows to prevent a bloodbath. It was a split-second decision that left Mirza totally defenseless when her brothers inevitably attacked, which led to both lovers dying. Let's really unpack this for a second. Mirza was a highly skilled archer. As he slept under that tree, Sahiba started to panic. She knew that if her brothers tracked them down, Mirza would likely use those arrows to kill them all before anyone even had a chance to talk. She acted to protect her family. But it wasn't a perfect plan. The brothers did find them, and because her decision left Mirza completely unarmed, they killed him immediately. Torn with immense grief, Sahiba then took her own life.
Let's pause for a second and ask what is probably the most important question of this explainer. Is it actually fair to call her a villain for trying to stop the man she loved from murdering her family? For hundreds of years, the retelling of this story has confidently concluded, yep, it's her fault. But modern critics, like Punita Rice, argue that framing this story this way just completely misses the mark. Sahiba did what she did because she simply didn't want her brother's blood on her hands.
In fact, Rice brilliantly points out the undeniable fact that Sahiba was faced with a menu of exclusively bad choices. Think about it. If she runs away and keeps the arrows, Mirza kills her family. If she keeps them and everyone fights, they all just kill each other. If she breaks the arrows, her brothers kill Mirza and she takes her own life. And what if she had just stayed home? She's forced into a miserable arranged marriage. Every single path leads to disaster. It's a lose-lose. Actually, scratch that. It's a lose-lose-lose scenario, which makes painting her as the villain seem incredibly unfair.
We really have to understand that the true culprits here were her murderous brothers and Izzat, the era's completely restrictive, oppressive obsession with honor and reputation. It wasn't Sahiba's broken arrows that doomed them. Sahiba's brothers are the ones who literally committed the murder. And frankly, under different circumstances, Mirza might have murdered them. They were all victims of their time, their society, and this concept of Izzat. It's this cultural obsession with family honor above all else that created the pressure cooker, dooming the lovers from the very start, way before Sahiba ever even touched those weapons.
Section 1. Retellings and Changing Perspectives.
So over the years, older retellings of this story, like the 1947 classic movie, the written works of Dr. Amjad Ali Bhatti, or even Harbhajan Man's incredibly popular song, have absolutely framed Sahiba's actions as the core problem. But you know what? Culture is shifting. Take Intense and Simran Kaur Dadley's 2019 song, for example. It does something completely radical. It tells the story directly from Sahiba's perspective. It finally acknowledges her impossible situation and completely flips the script on centuries of blame.
Which brings us to Section 2, The River's Daughter, A New Reality.
This whole changing perspective directly inspired a brand new chapter in the myth, which is Punita Rice's novel, The River's Daughter. Rice asked a simple but honestly profound question. What if the Mirza Sahiba story didn't end in complete tragedy? This thought experiment gave birth to a reimagining that explores a really fascinating alternate reality. It kind of exists somewhere in this cool space between a retelling of the original story and a spiritual sequel to it.
Meet our new main character, Sahira. She is a direct echo of Sahiba, and she's navigating an oppressive society where stillness is considered sacred and desire is strictly forbidden, just as her own arranged marriage approaches. Now, Sahira isn't just a copy-paste of Sahiba. She represents everything the original character went through, but dropped into the dystopian, patriarchal town of Jarawaran. In this town, women and girls have literally their every action governed by this thing called the Covenant of Stillness. And as Sahira's unwanted wedding draws closer, she mirrors the exact entrapment the original Sahiba felt centuries ago. But this time around, the story takes a drastically different turn.
Because it's much more than just a folklore sequel, right? It's this incredibly rich coming-of-age story about ancestral memory, forbidden connections, and making really hard choices. As Sahira begins to uncover a hidden power tied to the river's memory and her mother's mysterious disappearance, she has to navigate a forbidden connection to a man who never should have entered her life. The book takes the core tragedy of that original myth and weaves it into a narrative about finding your voice, staging a quiet rebellion against a super repressive society, and ultimately healing intergenerational pain.
The legacy of Mirza and Sahiba is a powerful reminder for us to always question why history remembers things the way it does. When a woman is backed into a corner by society with literally zero good options, why is she the one remembered as the villain? I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Seek out The River's Daughter to discover what kind of magic unfolds when we finally stop blaming the woman and start listening to the river's memory. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the narratives around you and never stop learning.